I stood silently by the living room window, staring out at the backyard. The late afternoon sun, that quintessential American golden hour, was slicing through the tall trees, bathing the lawn in dappled, shimmery light. My breath was shallow and my heart hammered a frantic rhythm not from the beauty, but from the emotional earthquake happening inside the house. I desperately wanted to call home. Megan, my husband Eric's daughter, was laughing her head off with her friends. I could hear her voice loud, confident, crystal clear, and utterly distant. Looking at her, I felt that familiar mix of pride and a profound hollow ache I couldn't shake. I'd spent the entire week prepping this party. Every dish, every gift, every last detail of the decor meticulously planned with one goal: to give Megan a memorable day. A party she'd always talk about, and I hoped a glimpse into how much I cared. But standing there now, I felt the invisible, crushing distance between us. I walked into the room, but Megan didn't turn around, didn't pause her laughter. She was living in her own world, and no matter how close I stood, was still the outsider. I took a deep, steadying breath, trying to clamp down on the swirling mix of frustration and hurt. It's just a party, I told myself. Everything's fine. But the fear was a cold whisper. Would any of this effort be seen? Would my love truly reach her, or was it all just pointless? That's when Eric walked in, phone in hand, capturing a quick video montage for the gram. He flashed me that confident, reassuring smile, his eyes saying, "Everything's cool, right?" But that smile, instead of soothing me, only amplified the chasm between me and this little family unit. Megan instantly turned to Eric, her face radiant, her joy complete. And then came the moment, small yet piercing. "Dad, look. Everyone loves it." She pointed at the frosted birthday cake, a cake I had spent half of yesterday morning meticulously decorating. Every layer of buttercream, every piped letter, was my labor of love. But the way she spoke, her enthusiasm directed solely at Eric, made me feel invisible. I stepped closer to the table, forcing a small, casual smile, inhaling deeply. But inside, the feeling of being discarded surged. Every dish, every gift, every decorative detail, the pieces I'd poured my heart into, the attention, the appreciation, it all seemed to circle Eric and Megan, as if I were just a superfluous guest. Megan continued chatting with her friends, sharing little inside stories and memories with Eric. I realized I had no role in the narrative she was constructing. I turned away, closing my eyes for a beat. It's just a party. Chill out. But every word, every laugh, every look Megan gave it, all underscored my position. I didn't belong here in the way I desperately yearned to. I glanced back at the cake, where I'd spent hours on the intricate frosting. With every stroke, I'd wished for Megan to see it, smile, say thank you, or at least look at me with acknowledgement. But her gaze was fixed on Eric, and I felt like an extra in my own home. My heart seized. The anger and the emptiness twisted my throat. I wanted to scream, to rush over and declare, "This is all because of me, Megan." But I held back, knowing it wouldn't change a thing. Megan was growing up, defining her world, and I couldn't, no matter how hard I tried, usurp Eric's place in her heart. The room was saturated with happiness, but to me, it was a muted joy, laced with profound loneliness. I scanned the scene, the sunlight streaming through the window, reflecting off the table, the faces of her friends, the neat stacks of gifts. Everything was picture perfect, yet I couldn't feel the perfection. It was a vibrant painting, and I was standing outside the frame, looking in but unable to touch it. I quietly retreated to the kitchen, the low-traffic zone. My hand grazed the condensation on the water pitcher I'd just refilled, but instead of a sense of accomplishment, I felt only a hollow void. Was I overreacting, or was this the distance I should have accepted from the beginning? Outside the window, the laughter continued, the chatter buzzed. The evening's golden light bounced off the leaves and onto the faces of Megan's friends. And in that moment, one thing was starkly clear. This party wouldn't just be a casual celebration. It was the arena where hidden emotions, hopes, and sharp disappointments were about to be exposed. I took another deep breath, pushing the loneliness away, trying to muster a smile as Megan glanced my way, but the smile, it wasn't truly for me yet. I knew that one wrong move, one careless word, and everything would shift. And I also knew that today, all of us, Eric, Megan, myself, and even the friends, were about to enter an afternoon where things would no longer be as simple as they seemed. I turned back to the living room, observing every gesture, every look. Things appeared calm, but I sensed the underlying tension, a thin string pulled to its breaking point. Then, a burst of laughter. Megan held up a gift, one I had specifically chosen, underscoring one more time that today was about her. And I, though physically present, was still just the bystander. My heart pounded, part love, part disappointment, but most of all, the feeling that I had to prove myself. I had to do something to make Megan see my effort, to make her see I wasn't just standing on the sidelines. And in that moment, I knew this party, which started as a celebration, was about to reveal the rawest emotions and the deepest, most persistent gaps between us. I stood there in the kitchen, clutching the pitcher of iced tea, my eyes laser-focused on Megan. She was in the middle of a hilarious school anecdote, and all eyes were on her, except mine. I tried to pull the corners of my mouth into a smile, but the gesture couldn't hide the raw, gnawing feeling of being sidelined. Eric walked past, giving me a quick glance. "Everything okay?" I nodded, but my voice felt fragile. "Everything's fine." The truth was, I was far from fine. Every little detail of this party, from the artisanal appetizers to the customized banner, was a piece of my heart, and now, it all felt overshadowed by a wave of untouchable joy. I wandered toward the dining table, looking at the beautifully frosted cake and the neat pile of gifts. Megan was holding the carefully selected present I'd bought, exclaiming to her friends, "Dad, look how pretty it is." Her voice was ecstatic, but the credit again was redirected. That familiar feeling of rejection surged, a sharp pinch in my chest. I turned away, heading toward the patio doors, looking out at the dazzling afternoon sun. A few kids were running laps around the deck. Laughter echoed, mixing with the chirping of birds and the distant traffic. Everything looked picture perfect, but inside, anxiety and disappointment were a thin, suffocating layer of smog I couldn't clear. Then, unexpectedly, Megan darted over to me, holding up a gift. "Look, Mum, isn't it amazing?" I managed a genuine smile this time, taking the gift, though my thoughts were still churning. She looked at me, her eyes bright, but I still sensed that emotional distance. I wanted to say something real, something meaningful, but the words caught in my throat. I just smiled and nodded, trying to mirror her excitement. In that brief moment of quiet, I realized something important. Megan wasn't trying to hurt me. She was just living in her bubble of pure birthday excitement, and that innocence was what made me feel so lost. I flashed back to the past week, the hours of planning, the decorating, the tiny details, and I had to ask myself, was my effort strong enough to reach her heart, or was this whole venture a futile exercise? Eric came up beside me, placing a hand on my shoulder. "You did an amazing job." His compliment, instead of comforting me, made the weight heavier. It wasn't that I didn't appreciate it, but I realized, my effort, my love, was only being acknowledged in part, not in full. I took a shaky breath, watching Megan play, her laughter filling the room. I knew this party, though starting with celebration, was going to be the stage where the true dynamics of our blended family would be exposed, where love, hope, and deep-seated disappointment would intertwine. And then, as I turned to pour another round of iced tea, a small detail snagged my attention. Megan was glancing at me over her shoulder. A quick, almost secretive look, as if trying to gauge my reaction. That moment hit me. Maybe she did sense the distance, but didn't know how to articulate it. A new fear crept in. Was Megan upset, or was she just confused by my role? The next few minutes proceeded normally, but the tension inside me was palpable. I watched every gesture, every look, every smile, searching for any sign that Megan truly valued what I had done. But the signals remained ambiguous, making me simultaneously want to pull her close and fear that one wrong move would push her further away. Finally, Eric called Megan over for a joint picture. Megan jumped, ran straight to Eric, grabbed his hand, and grinned radiantly at the camera. I stood there, watching them, my heart aching. I knew I had to act, but where to start? The wave of confusion, anxiety, and frustration almost made me want to leave the room. But I couldn't. If I retreated now, I'd lose the chance to bridge the gap with my stepdaughter. I walked over, placing my hand gently on Megan's arm. "Sweetheart, can I take a picture with you too?" My voice was shaky, but I forced it steady. Megan looked at me, her smile faltering slightly, weighing the request. And then, she took my hand, allowing me to stand beside her for the photo. It was a fleeting moment, but I felt a tiny spark of hope. Maybe, just maybe, my love was starting to resonate, however faintly. But the instant the camera clicked, Megan turned back to Eric, bursting with excitement. "Dad, look at this." Her eyes were back on him, cementing the reality. I was still not the center of her universe. I quietly inhaled, giving myself a silent directive. "It's okay. Step by step I'll find a way to be seen." The party continued, but the invisible barrier remained. Even standing next to Megan, even holding her hand for a second, I was acutely aware of being on the periphery. It was a heartbreaking feeling that also fueled my resolve to prove my affection. I knew today wouldn't just be a fun party. It was the stage where all the rawest emotion, disappointment, hope would be laid bare. As everyone gathered for the gift opening, Megan held up my present, her eyes sparkling, but her words still contained the sting. "Thank you, Mom. But look at Dad's gift." I stood there, feeling both relief and profound emptiness. Relief that she liked the gift, and emptiness that my effort was still secondary. I realized this was just the beginning. This party was going to expose the true gap, the unmet hopes, and the difficult path I, as a stepmom, had to walk to connect with my husband's daughter. And in that moment, I knew the emotions I felt today were merely the prelude before the real family drama was about to unfold. The energy in the room shifted instantly, a subtle change, but one I felt deep in my bones. Megan had just opened her gift, a brand new iPhone, the one Eric had been hinting at for months. The pure, unadulterated joy on her face completely eclipsed anything I had worked for. I stood near the gift table, my hands clasped tightly, trying to plaster on a convincing smile as my heart hammered in sharp, painful stabs. "Wow, that's amazing," one of Megan's friends gushed. Megan beamed, bouncing on the balls of her feet. I was standing right there, yet I felt like a slow-motion blur passing through the background, unable to connect. I couldn't help but wonder, would my effort, my silent, sincere affection, ever be truly seen, truly recognized? Eric moved to my side, placing a hand on my shoulder. His touch meant to reassure. "Everything's fine, right? She's just excited." I nodded, forcing the smile wider. But deep down, I knew Megan's joy, the room's collective thrill, was the very thing isolating me. A heavy, stone-like disappointment settled in my chest, squeezing the air from my lungs with every shallow breath. Then Megan looked at me, her bright eyes tilted slightly, as if attempting to read my expression. I offered a gentle smile. "I'm glad you like it, sweetheart." But she only gave a half smile in return before immediately pivoting back to Eric. "Dad, can we take a selfie?" My heart constricted. Part of it was love for her happiness, but the larger part was a crushing sense of being dismissed. I quietly retreated to the kitchen counter, watching the scene unfold from a distance. The laughter, the unwrapping, the photos. But the gap between me and Megan felt like an insurmountable wall. I wanted to march over, pull her into a hug, and tell her I had poured my soul into this day, but the words were lodged stubbornly in my throat. Megan rushed toward Eric, yelling, "Dad, look what I got." Her eyes were ablaze with excitement. Standing there, I felt a painful mix of heartbreak and sudden, sharp resentment. I had to face it. My love, my effort, was still not enough to secure a central place in Megan's world. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. I have to do something. I have to make her see me. But before I could formulate a plan, an unexpected chaos erupted. One of Megan's gifts slid off the table, crashing into a stack of glasses. The brittle, shattering noise cut through the laughter, and every eye whipped around. Megan flinched, startled. In that sharp moment of silence, I saw my opening. I rushed forward, my voice shaky but firm. "Be careful, sweetheart." I picked up the fallen gift. Megan looked at me, her eyes wide with confusion, partly from the noise, partly from my sudden, decisive proximity. She looked initially annoyed, as if she wanted to handle the situation herself, but then she gave a quick, small smile. Accepting my help, that seemingly mundane moment felt like a turning point. Megan noticed my concern. She acknowledged my presence. But just as quickly, Eric stepped in, grabbing another box and booming with a loud, easy laugh. "Here, let's take a picture with this one instead." And just like that, Megan's gaze swung back to Eric, confirming a brutal truth. My role in her world was still fundamentally unsettled. My emotions were spiraling. I wanted to bail, but I forced myself to stay and try one more time. I knew that if I didn't act now, if I couldn't validate my affection, the chasm between us would only deepen. "Dad, I want to show you something," Megan said to Eric. I stood there, trying to suppress the painful sting of envy and disappointment. Eric turned to me, offering a quick, placating smile. "Go on, show me." Megan bounded to the table with another gift, but her eyes flickered past me. I understood. She hadn't fully registered the depth of my feelings for her. I made my decision. I walked closer, stooping down to meet Megan's eye level. "Sweetheart, I also want to see what you got." Megan stared at me for a beat, her eyes wide, then nodded. And for the first time all afternoon, she looked at me with undivided attention, waiting for my reaction. My heart soared, but just as I smiled, Eric swooped in again. "Let's take a photo together." Megan laughed, pulled Eric into the frame, and I stood beside them acknowledged, yet still on the edge of their moment. A confusing mix of warmth and sharp pain flooded me. I realized this party was more than a celebration. It was a trial for me, the stepmom, to find my place in the heart of my husband's daughter. And it was the moment I understood that the distance wasn't about the gifts or the money. It was about connection, and whether I could truly convey my genuine love. The laughter, the chatter, the brilliant afternoon light, all continued to fill the room. But I knew the conflict wasn't over. Today was just the opening act, before the real emotions, the anger, the disappointment, and the fragile hope finally exploded. I took a deep, fortifying breath, bracing myself for the next steps, the next confrontations, determined to prove that I was more than just a bystander. The air in the room was growing thick with unspoken tension, despite the continuing chorus of excited chatter. I was hovering near the gift table, watching Megan unwrap the next item, a boxed set of a fantasy series she'd been obsessed with. I could see the pure happiness in her eyes, but it was immediately counteracted by a powerful resurgence of my own hollow ache. All my efforts, the careful gift selection, the meticulous decor, the hours in the kitchen still felt insufficient to capture Megan's undivided attention. Eric stepped forward, phone held high, ready to document the moment. Smile for the camera, Megan. His voice was boisterous and effortlessly confident. Megan instantly darted toward him, wrapping him in a big hug, her face radiant. I froze, my heart contracting painfully. I desperately wanted to cut in, to pull Megan toward me, but any aggressive move now would likely confuse her, or worse, cause a major backlash. I took a long, slow breath, opting for the soft approach. Sweetheart, can I see that book too? Megan looked at me, a flicker of hesitation in her eyes. Part of her was curious, but the emotional wall remained firmly in place. I gave her a gentle smile, trying to project warmth, knowing this was just the painful beginning. I had to be patient. Then, the unexpected interruption. One of her friends accidentally bumped the table, sending a platter of cupcakes crashing to the floor with a loud, sickening thud. Megan gasped. A couple of kids shrieked. In that instant, I saw both opportunity and test. I rushed forward, my voice low and soothing. Careful, sweetheart. Let's clean this together. Megan looked surprised, as if she hadn't expected me to jump into the mess. But before I could even lift the shattered platter, Eric swooped in, grabbing the mess. He laughed loudly, covering the awkwardness. Don't worry, I got it. Megan's eyes immediately locked onto Eric, and once again, I felt that crushing, insurmountable distance. My heart stung, disappointment warring with a rising tide of fury. I wondered, was I completely erased from my stepdaughter's field of vision? I took a strategic step back, taking a deep, calming breath. But then Megan turned to me, her voice small and uncertain. Mom, can you help me? I smiled, moving closer, but just as my hand reached for a scattered wrapper, Eric's hand landed on Megan's shoulder. He grinned. I'll help you too. Megan's attention instantly shifted back to him, and my feeling of being sidelined doubled in that brief, excruciating moment. The truth was undeniable. Megan adored Eric, and I was far from being a crucial part of her emotional landscape. But I couldn't surrender. I had to find a way. I had to validate my love, or risk being forever excluded from this vital relationship. I decided to change tactics. Instead of directly competing for Eric and Megan's joint moments, I started observing. I looked for her minute preferences, her small habits, the details only a truly invested person would notice. I quietly straightened a stack of gifts, repositioned a decoration that Megan had briefly admired, hoping that eventually, she would notice the sustained care woven into every small gesture. But Megan remained blissfully unaware. She moved from friend to friend, laughing and chatting, and every time I looked up, Eric was still the gravitational center of her world. I felt like a stranger in the very home I had poured my heart into organizing. My resolve wavered fiercely. Part of me screamed to retreat. The other part urged me to fight harder. I knew that if I didn't make an impression today, the emotional gap with Megan would only solidify. And then Megan opened the final gift, a small, elegantly wrapped box that I had carefully chosen and saved for last. Her eyes widened with a flicker of genuine surprise. Mom, this is amazing, Megan exclaimed, her voice filled with awe. And for the first time all day, her gaze was solely, completely on me, a look of pure recognition. My heart erupted with joy, but instantly, Eric stepped in, glancing at the gift. Wow, that's really thoughtful. Megan turned to him, the spell broken, and the familiar sense of being relegated returned. The turbulent mix of happiness, deflation, frustration, and fierce hope surged through me. I realized this party was far more than a celebration. It was the sharp, painful revelation of where we all stood. If I wanted to earn Megan's heart, I needed patience, and a way to connect that she could truly feel and trust. As everyone gathered for the final group photo, I stood slightly to the back, not trying to force my way in, but my eyes never left Megan. I knew that even though the day was ending in laughter and cheer, it marked a critical turning point. The distance between me and Megan had been starkly defined, and from this moment forward, my every action would determine whether I could finally become a true, important presence in her life. The air in the room was growing thick with unspoken tension, despite the continuing chorus of excited chatter. I was hovering near the gift table, watching Megan unwrap the next item, a boxed set of a fantasy series she'd been obsessed with. I could see the pure happiness in her eyes, but it was immediately counteracted by a powerful resurgence of my own hollow ache. All my efforts, the careful gift selection, the meticulous decor, the hours in the kitchen still felt insufficient to capture Megan's undivided attention. Eric stepped forward, phone held high, ready to document the moment. Smile for the camera, Megan. His voice was boisterous and effortlessly confident. Megan instantly darted toward him, wrapping him in a big hug, her face radiant. I froze, my heart contracting painfully. I desperately wanted to cut in, to pull Megan toward me, but any aggressive move now would likely confuse her or worse, cause a major backlash. I took a long, slow breath, opting for the soft approach. Sweetheart, can I see that book too? Megan looked at me, a flicker of hesitation in her eyes. Part of her was curious, but the emotional wall remained firmly in place. I gave her a gentle smile, trying to project warmth, knowing this was just the painful beginning. I had to be patient. Then, the unexpected interruption. One of her friends accidentally bumped the table, sending a platter of cupcakes crashing to the floor with a loud, sickening thud. Megan gasped. A couple of kids shrieked. In that instant, I saw both opportunity and test. I rushed forward, my voice low and soothing. Careful, sweetheart. Let's clean this together. Megan looked surprised, as if she hadn't expected me to jump into the mess. But before I could even lift the shattered platter, Eric swooped in, grabbing the mess. He laughed loudly, covering the awkwardness. Don't worry, I got it. Megan's eyes immediately locked onto Eric, and once again, I felt that crushing, insurmountable distance. My heart stung, disappointment warring with a rising tide of fury. I wondered, was I completely erased from my stepdaughter's field of vision? I took a strategic step back, taking a deep, calming breath. But then Megan turned to me, her voice small and uncertain. Mom, can you help me? I smiled, moving closer, but just as my hand reached for a scattered wrapper, Eric's hand landed on Megan's shoulder. He grinned. I'll help you too. Megan's attention instantly shifted back to him, and my feeling of being sidelined doubled. In that brief, excruciating moment, the truth was undeniable. Megan adored Eric, and I was far from being a crucial part of her emotional landscape, but I couldn't surrender. I had to find a way. I had to validate my love, or risk being forever excluded from this vital relationship. I decided to change tactics. Instead of directly competing for Eric and Megan's joint moments, I started observing. I looked for her minute preferences, her small habits, the details only a truly invested person would notice. I quietly straightened a stack of gifts, repositioned a decoration that Megan had briefly admired, hoping that eventually, she would notice the sustained care woven into every small gesture. But Megan remained blissfully unaware. She moved from friend to friend, laughing and chatting, and every time I looked up, Eric was still the gravitational center of her world. I felt like a stranger in the very home I had poured my heart into organizing. My resolve wavered fiercely. Part of me screamed a retreat. The other part urged me to fight harder. I knew that if I didn't make an impression today, the emotional gap with Megan would only solidify. And then, Megan opened the final gift, a small, elegantly wrapped box that I had carefully chosen and saved for last. Her eyes widened with a flicker of genuine surprise. Mum, this is amazing, Megan exclaimed, her voice filled with awe. And for the first time all day, her gaze was solely, completely, on me, a look of pure recognition. My heart erupted with joy. But instantly, Eric stepped in, glancing at the gift. Wow, that's really thoughtful. Megan turned to him, the spell broken, and the familiar sense of being relegated returned. The turbulent mix of happiness, deflation, frustration, and fierce hope surged through me. I realized this party was far more than a celebration. It was the sharp, painful revelation of where we all stood. If I wanted to earn Megan's heart, I needed patience. and a way to connect that she could truly feel and trust. As everyone gathered for the final group photo, I stood slightly to the back, not trying to force my way in, but my eyes never left Megan. I knew that even though the day was ending in laughter and cheer, it marked a critical turning point. The distance between me and Megan had been starkly defined, and from this moment forward, my every action would determine whether I could finally become a true, important presence in her life. The atmosphere in the room, previously so thick with tension, suddenly felt electric. The chatter and laughter of the guests faded into a distant hum. All I could hear was the pounding of my heart and my own careful, relieved breathing. Megan stood right in front of me, still clutching the journal, her eyes wide yet tentative. "Mum, I didn't know you felt this way about me," she confessed, her voice shaking but utterly sincere. I squeezed her hand, feeling the warmth of her touch spread through me. Though a lingering fear remained, did she truly understand and accept my affection, or was this just a temporary flash of sentimentality? "Sweetheart," I began, my voice soft but firm, "I've always wanted you to know that I care. Not because of expensive gifts or big parties, but because you are important to me." Megan furrowed her brow, her expression a mix of surprise and profound emotion. I took a deep breath and continued, "I may not be perfect, and I may not always get it right, but I'm here, always." Eric stood silently nearby. I could feel him observing every tiny shift in our expressions, measuring whether to intervene or let us navigate this private, crucial moment. Megan glanced at him briefly, then turned back to me. "Mum, I think I understand. I want us to be closer." Her voice was small but brimming with hope. My heart swelled with overwhelming emotion. For the first time all day, Megan had actively voiced a desire for connection, stripping away all hesitation. I tightened my grip on her hand. "I want that too, sweetheart. More than anything." A radiant smile broke across her face, and in that moment, I felt the unmistakable click of genuine connection. But before I could fully exhale, Megan looked back at Eric. "Dad, do you think Mum really means it?" Her voice held a slight quiver, but her eyes were searching for his confirmation. Eric smiled, resting his hand gently on my shoulder. "I can see it, Megan. She truly cares about you." His gaze was serious yet warm, affirming that today I had been seen, but also that the responsibility of maintaining this fragile bond was mine. Megan dipped her head slightly, offering a soft, true smile. "Then, I want us to try. I want Mum to be a part of my life, too." My heart gave a powerful, joyous thump. I pulled her into a tight embrace. "You have no idea how much that means to me." In that moment, Eric stood beside us, smiling, as if witnessing a miracle. The emotional gap between Megan and me had finally been bridged, though it would require endless patience and persistent effort. I looked at Megan, into her innocent yet intelligent eyes, and realized the truth. Love today was not a gift or a party, but a mutual understanding, a choice to trust and to connect. Megan grabbed my hand, bouncing lightly. "Mum, let's read the rest together later." "Okay." I nodded, grinning. "Absolutely. Can't wait." My heart was overflowing with happiness, yet I knew the challenges were just beginning. The stepmother-stepdaughter relationship wouldn't magically become perfect overnight. But today we had found our crucial starting point. Eric stepped closer, looking at both of us. "I'm proud of you both today. It's a start." His eyes were warm, filled with both relief and acknowledgement of the journey ahead. I realized this party wasn't just a celebration. It was a watershed moment where true affection could finally flow, moving past distance and misunderstanding toward a durable bond. I held Megan one last time, whispering, "I promise, sweetheart, I'll always be here for you." Megan squeezed my hand back, smiling with a newfound sense of trust. I knew that from this moment forward, everything would be different. Our new chapter, founded on love, understanding, and hope, had finally begun. As the afternoon waned, the golden sunlight stretched across the room one last time, illuminating every trace of the day's elaborate party. Megan was seated next to me on the sofa, clutching the journal, her hands gently resting on the cover. She looked at me, a soft, trusting smile on her lips, her eyes radiating belief. For the first time all day, I felt a truly genuine connection, no lingering distance, no hesitation, just authentic warmth and mutual understanding. Derek stood nearby, watching us in silence. He was smiling, his gaze warm but meaningful. I realized that today hadn't just been a fun celebration. It had been a masterclass in patience, in building trust, and in navigating the complexities of a blended family. A small party, yet it contained a whole world of emotions, from frustration and disappointment to pure happiness and hope. Megan spoke, her voice clear and sweet. "Mum, Can we do this again sometime? Just us. I squeezed her hand, smiling broadly. Of course, sweetheart. I'd love that. That single moment made me understand that connection isn't forged through gifts or grand gestures, but through small acts, through authentic presence, and by patiently earning trust. Eric approached, placing his hand reassuringly on my shoulder. You did great today. She sees how much you care. I nodded, a profound sense of relief washing over me. Though many challenges certainly lay ahead, I knew that today, a significant marker had been laid down. Megan had seen my sincere heart, and I had proven I was not just an outsider, I was a vital, intentional part of her life. I looked at Megan, a silent vow forming in my heart. Every day, I will try harder to be the mother figure you need. Megan leaned her head gently against my shoulder, and I felt the warmth, the trust, and the gradual solidification of our bond. There was no more distance or loneliness, and were genuine moments of affection and connection. As the party officially wound down and the last guests departed, Megan still held onto my hand. On the drive home, she said softly, Mum, thank you for today. I smiled, my eyes welling up slightly. No, sweetheart. Thank you for letting me be part of your world. That sentence wasn't just the conclusion of a difficult day, it was the launching point for a new relationship. One built on stability and hopeful promise, and I realized the most important takeaway. Love and understanding are rarely easy. They require time, resilience, and consistent, small acts of sincerity. When you give your whole heart, and refuse to give up despite disappointment or setback, the result is profound trust, connection, and true, earned happiness. Finally, I looked at Megan, my eyes filled with quiet conviction we're going to have many more days like this, together. Megan smiled, and for the first time that day, all three of us, Megan, Eric, and myself, felt a shared, genuine bond. A family unit finally finding its anchor where authentic love and patience paved the way. And from that moment forward, I understood that love is not just about giving, but about patiently waiting, understanding, and walking alongside each other, step by step, moment by moment, to make every day whole.